Hi, Mike and Mike's Carburetor Parts. I had a question on the 1920 and I thought I'd answer it with a video and point out a few other things about this carburetor. I have a customer that rebuilt his carburetor, and at idle it would just kind of bog down and finally die. I suspect it's getting too much fuel. It's flooding. That's probably what it's doing. That's my guess. One thing you might check is after it dies, does it smell gassy? That would be an indication of a flooding. So going on from there, let's assume that's correct. I want to point out some of the things that will make it do that. First of all, flooding is just a situation where it's getting too much fuel. That's the bottom line. It's not anything tricky. It's just getting too much fuel, and there's only so many things that'll make it do that. Number one, the fuel is coming through the needle and seat here. A real long shot on this, just as it came to mind, is if you happen to put on a new fuel pump, it's a possibility it's putting out too much fuel pressure, and that would hold the needle out. So check that. The other thing on these, most of them came with a nitrofill float. You generally should replace that when you rebuild the carburetor. Here's the problem on these 1920s. They're generally not available, these floats. There's two different types of floats. There's this one. There's a little older style that are not produced anymore. I do have a limited supply of the older style still. This one here, I don't have any of at the moment. At any rate, these nitrofills, they tend to absorb fuel over time, and of course they'll get heavy and cause you all kinds of weird problems. I've learned this the hard way. Just on carburetors I've had so much trouble with, just find out, replace the float, and everything's good to go. Like I say, the problem's going to be finding one. So at any rate, you can't weigh them or anything. Well, I guess you could. I don't know what the grams are on this. I'll try and find out. But at any rate, these are solid, so shaking them isn't going to do any good. So as a rule of thumb, we just replace them. So keep your eye out for a new one. If you find a new one, hang on to it. All right, so of course your float level. Now typically you want to go by your specifications, but if all else fails, if your float is sitting level when your carburetor's upside down, you're good to go. Okay. One thing you should try is hold your float closed gently, because you got a Viton tip needle and you don't want to damage it. So hold it closed and blow through the inlet, and it should be stopping the fuel. If not, maybe you got a needle and seat problem. Now, here's something that happens a lot. You get all done with your carburetor, you put it on the car, you start it up, all the crud from the gas tank runs up and ends up in the carburetor again. And what you have is junk in your needle and seat. So if you have this problem right after rebuild of flooding, take it apart, take your needle and seat out, clean it up, put it back in, see if that doesn't take care of your problem. It happens a lot. So that's basically right offhand about the only thing I can think of that's going to cause this thing to flood. So you're going to have to check all those things out, some easier than others. One other thing I want to point out is you got two balls in your metering block here, and your bigger ball should go out in the shorter tube here. So if you took that apart, you took the balls out, make sure you got the big one in the smaller tube. The other thing is, make sure that your let's see, I wonder if I can take this out real quick. Maybe not. Okay, you got your economizer here, and it's pushing down on I call it the power valve. And what happens is at idle, this thing is pulled up, and you don't have any extra fuel going in here. And then at higher speeds, you lose vacuum, and this will drop down and allow more fuel into your metering block. So one thing you might want to check is make sure that the hole here, this is your vacuum hole right here, blow air through it, make sure you get air all the way through. let's see, I believe on this 1920 it actually starts right here. So you want to have a good passage through there, make sure your gasket's on correctly and everything, because if that's not done correctly and the vacuum is not pulling that up, then you're going to get too much fuel that way. So there you go. That points out a few things that can be a problem. Your idle mixer screw, you know, at idle, a rough idle is all you're going to get. If you suspect it's dying, I mean, if it's dying, then what you want to do is start turning your screw back in a little at a time, or out. You may have to try it several places, but it's not that touchy. So if you turn in a half a turn, turn out a half a turn, nothing changes, it's not your idle mixture, it's something else. Okay, of course there's always the vacuum leak problem, and that would be the gasket here is about the only place on this one. So check those things. That'll probably it'll probably be one of those problems there. Okay, thank you for watching.